Now an update on the opioid epidemic. Drug dealers are changing the way they package cocaine. Now it's laced with fentanyl. That's new information coming from the local opioid program, Project Save Lives, that's trying to help people get off drugs. News for Jack's reporter Janice Harris. She spoke with a former cocaine user who says doing drugs is a deadly game that no one can win. Janice.
Sure that no one can win, and I'm standing in front of the St. Vincent's Hospital where the opioid program Project Save Lives is housed, and doctors here say that they have found out that a lot of the patients have a combination of cocaine and fentanyl. They say drug dealers have gone from pills to heroin and now cocaine with a deadly form of fentanyl.
What? Let's just go back a couple seconds here and hear that one more time.
Heroin and now cocaine. Drug dealers have gone from pills to heroin and now cocaine with a deadly form of fentanyl.
All right, people. I just can't even believe this. I mean, I already did the video before about how they were talking about the same shit with weed. There's nobody putting fentanyl in weed. There's nobody putting fentanyl in cocaine. Let's just fucking chill out and relax and not fucking freak out, because this is complete bullshit.
From prescription drugs to heroin, doctors say drug dealers are adding fentanyl to give users a power.
No, they're fucking not. Maybe the heroin. And when people, these days people tell people about it. You know, and people that are into heroin kind of seek out that heroin that has the fentanyl in it. But I don't even think it's like a big, huge problem that dealers are lacing the heroin with fentanyl. The big problem is people are doing fentanyl while they're doing all these other drugs. That is the fucking that's what's going on here. There's, you know. All right, let me just go. We'll watch more of the video. I'm trying to, like, hold back.
Full deadly high. The new report today, released just hours ago, shows the Project Save Lives patient.
All right, Project Saves Lives. Now this is a fairly recent. This chart was put out talking about the people that have been found to be dead. The CDC has a chart that looks similar to this of people that are dead from drug overdoses. So these drug test results are reflective of who this hospital has been dealing with. You know, so you got these people, and yeah, fentanyl is on there. Fentanyl rings on all 10. Or whatever that's 10 patients out of the 12. What does that tell you? And it's not because there's some crazy dealer out there that's putting the fentanyl in, you know, some of these other drugs, like Xanax. Have there been some incidences where they found Xanaxes on the street that were completely like counterfeit that had fentanyl in it? Probably. I think I've even heard of that. But to say that this is some kind of a thing that's going on a frequent basis is fucking insane, because it's simply not. And no one in their right mind would do this. Like, who's going to use expensive... Fentanyl is not cheap. All right? Even if you get it from illicit black market sources, and they're talking about how, oh, China's flooding the market with fentanyl. And, you know, the more they... This story and the stories where they're talking about China's flooding the market with fentanyl... You know who's flooding the market with fentanyl? The fucking manufacturers. That's why it's showing up all across the spectrum on drug overdoses. And all across the age spectrum. And all across the, you know, whatever demographic you want to throw out there.
Patients have cocaine and fentanyl in their system more than any other drugs.
That's because cocaine is the most common drug on this whole list that people do. All right? This is, you know, these are people that said that they were going to be, you know, they said, okay, you can use my drug test results in your little thing. So these aren't even people that died. And this is just people that these results were just provided in this February of 2018. So this is just 12 people that they randomly detected these drugs in. Come on, man. You know, like, no shit. And it's just because of the sample. I'm sure it's because of the sample of that day. You know, these are people that overdosed on drugs, and they come in there and they got cocaine in their system, and they got fentanyl in their system. Are these the same people? Because that doesn't mean the cocaine and the fentanyl was in the same bag at one time.
Richard Preston used cocaine and other drugs for nearly 30 years before he stopped. Preston hopes users can walk away from drugs before they die.
A casual user, typically, like we talked about earlier, will go to a party and they'll have a few drinks or cocktails, and it lets their inhibitions down. And they'll take that cocaine, kind of how I got started. That start might be your finish now.
Dr. Raymond Pond, the creator.
All right, look, guys, there's always a danger when you're doing illicit street purchased drugs. All right, I'm not out there saying, hey, don't listen to these guys, all the cocaine is safe. But man, this is insane. I mean, this is just not even legitimate. I mean, think about it right now. Several million people right now are doing a line of cocaine. And probably, you know, right around 1 million people, between 500,000 and 1 million people are probably firing up some crack rock right now, according to the numbers. Where's all the fucking fentanyl deaths? Where's all the, you know, where does the numbers really bear this shit out? Please tell me that.
Creator of the opioid pilot program.
And believe me, I'm not just saying that because I'm like, I haven't seen a bunch of headlines with people, you know, like, oh shit, like 20 people died from fentanyl laced coke, and they're over here and over there. And it's like, you know, when the fentanyl laced heroin came out back in like 2004, if anybody remembers way back in 2004, when a shitload of the fentanyl laced heroin hit the streets for the first time, what happened? Oh yeah, shitloads of people died from it. And what did that do? Oh yeah, it generated a shitload of headlines because people were actually dying from this shit. If they think they're getting out ahead of this and warning people like, oh, hey, be careful out there, guys. You know, there's a bunch of cocaine laced with fentanyl out there. No, that's not a legitimate thing. No one's going to believe you.
Says the threat of a drug overdose is expanding to African American communities.
Typically, fentanyl has been a Caucasian drug, and typically cocaine is predominantly found in the African American community.
At the morgue, I found more people have already died with cocaine and fentanyl in their urine.
So you're talking about people that have died from drug use. And then you're looking at these toxicology reports. The cause of death says cocaine right on this toxicology report. Probable a minimal amount of smoke inhalation was contributed to it, and that's about it. And they're talking about thermal and hypertension and heart disease. So this sounds like somebody that's a little older, and they're outside smoking crack to the point where they overdosed and died from it. So then they tested the urine and found that, okay, now we also found some opioids in there, some fentanyl. That doesn't mean that he even did fentanyl that fucking day. So
from the first week of January, some victims ranged in age from 25 to 54, men and women with cocaine and fentanyl found in their urine samples.
This is, all right, now they make the leap several times in all the reporting that I've seen done on this, from we found fentanyl in the urine or the blood or, you know, whatever. But nobody's ever presented, because believe me, I'm not just slamming this particular hospital and their little, overdose prevention squad who's really working overtime to try to prevent overdoses. I give them all the credit that they can get and more. You know, thank you for all your good work. But I think this is just ridiculous what they're trying to say here about this cocaine that's laced with fentanyl. I just simply do not believe it, period. And there's another big reason why I think a lot of this is being misreported. You got a lot of people that come in overdosed and then they get revived and they're alive again. And the doctor or the cop or whoever's talking to them, family member, what are you doing? I can't believe you overdosed. And they're like, you overdosed on, fentanyl. What? I didn't know you did opioids. And then the person that, is sitting there like, oh shit. And they were like, oh, well, I thought I was only smoking weed or doing cocaine. Because even cocaine has a less of a stigma these days. Even smoking crack, believe it or not, is even more acceptable than actively abusing fentanyl. I mean, obviously synthetics seem to be a little bit more acceptable by and large in society, but fentanyl over the last 10, 15 years has not done anything to help its own reputation. Believe me. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's not that I'm just skeptical of these guys and what they're doing and what they're saying. It's that I've looked into this ever since like last year sometime when I seen the first report of fentanyl laced heroin again. And these reports keep coming and going. And do I doubt that there is actually like some fentanyl laced heroin out there? I don't doubt that. And if there is anything that someone's going to lace fentanyl into before they even sell it and without even telling the user, it might be heroin, because they might have some heroin that's so cut down to nothing that they want to make it still give you some kind of buzz. So they put a really tiny amount of fentanyl in there. Now, why is it so hard to believe for me that people are putting fentanyl in cocaine and weed and shit? Man, because first of all, fentanyl is not cheap. Second of all, fentanyl is highly deadly. Just handling too much of it, you could overdose. And if you don't do anything about your overdose condition, you could die from just touching the shit. So it's not a joke to be sitting here saying, oh, these guys are goofy. No, it's serious shit. To tell people that, and there's a reason for them to push this out there. There's a reason for all this fear-based propaganda hitting the waves concerning fentanyl-laced cocaine. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But basically, and I'm not even exaggerating, I believe that this whole campaign, which I've seen in action for over a year now, and the rhetoric is always the same. Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. You just got to go out there and assume that the whole, everywhere you go, in this case, they're talking about cocaine. And they even said this about weed. There was even some rhetoric that was going on about 6 months ago where they said this about weed. You got to go out there with the assumption that everything you buy on the black market has fentanyl laced in it, just to be safe. And they're trying to sell the naloxone, pure and simple.
A deadly reminder, drug dealers are shifting from one drug to another while killing some users along the way.
Innocent people who are using cocaine are going to start, and have been, overdosing and potentially, and dying actually.
See, they cut that guy off before he even started his thought and before his sentence was even done. This is what fear-based propaganda is all about, is edits like that, where you just get the part that's supposed to scare you. I'm sure he said something after that probably brought this back to the ground a little bit.
Save Lives program is expected to expand to another branch of St. Vincent's, but in the meantime, Dr. Palm says he is still concerned about what he sees happening. He's also concerned about legislation that he says he supports, but is concerned the reduction of pills that legitimate legal prescription drug users might have to deal with in the future might end up forcing them to also go to street drugs. And he believes that could be a deadly end for them too. Live at St. Vincent's Hospital.
Unbelievably reckless reporting coming from News 4 Jacksonville. But, they're not the only ones, man. Like, NPR grabbed this. And this is, like I said, this fentanyl-laced cocaine. bullshit has been going on for a while now. Here's an article all the way back in March 6th. Oops. March 2nd. Fentanyl, laced cocaine, and marijuana. It probably goes back even farther. I guess I'm not online. So, anyway, NPR did run this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because NPR decided to just invent some of these cocaine-laced fentanyl deaths. Now, the thing about it is I'm not saying that nobody ever did some cocaine and did some fentanyl together and then died. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not saying that maybe there is somewhere that somebody put fentanyl and cocaine and sold it to somebody they either know or to a complete stranger. Either way, fuck you, whoever did that. Drug dealers aren't trying to kill people, first of all. And when the lady before, she was talking about like, oh, drug dealers have moved from one drug to another, and they're putting the fentanyl in this, and then they put it in that, and now they're putting in. First, they're acting like some drug dealers are sitting back with a fucking never-ending supply of fentanyl, and they want to get people hooked on it. So, let's see, who can we get hooked on it? Well, those people that do coke's got a little bit of money. Maybe if we throw some fentanyl in their coke, they'll come back for more, and they'll be hooked on the fucking opioids. That doesn't make any sense at all. If someone does coke and they get more and they feel like they need more, like that's what addiction does or some shit, then they'd probably want to go get more coke, not fucking opioids, especially if they don't even know what the fucking buzz is. And I'm sorry, whether you do coke or opioids or not, or whatever understanding of drugs you might or might not have, there's classifications of drugs, and they're there for a reason. Like cocaine is considered a stimulant, and then your opioids are basically, you could say that they have different effects on different people's, depending on their physiology or whatever, chemistry. But by and large, we're talking about a downer versus a upper. And on the street, they're called speedballs. And that's, what they try to make this claim here. I guess I'll go ahead and read this since it's so short. But yeah, this is some bullshit, guys. I don't really have, I'm not saying go out there and pretend like you never even heard this, but I wouldn't expect to see any cocaine that had fentanyl in it. And just remember, if you do see an actual test, a lab test from a government agency that shows the results of cocaine that had fentanyl in a baggie that somebody was selling, then just remember back in the days of alcohol prohibition where the government literally sold poison alcohol that killed people just to, scare people out of buying certain alcohol in certain markets or whatever. But I'm not saying that the government would even do that, but this is the fear-based propaganda and has no basis in reality that I know of. So a pipe was the only sign of drug use found near Chris Bennett's body in November, but it looked like the 32-year-old Taunton, Massachusetts native had stopped breathing and died of an opioid overdose. Bennett's mother, Liza, couldn't understand what happened. Then she saw the toxicology report. Quote, "I'm convinced he was smoking cocaine that was laced." She says that's what he had in his system. It was cocaine and fentanyl. Liza Bennett was shocked. Chris had developed an addiction to pain pills and then heroin in his late teens, but had not used opioids for at least 10 years as far as she knew. That's pretty key shit right there. Bennett had warned her son that if he ever used opioids again, he'd be in greater danger of an overdose because of fentanyl, an opioid drug more powerful than heroin, was mixed into much of the supply. All right, there we go again with the hyperbole and the just, even if they're saying this is hearsay that she said this, like, oh yeah, you go out there and try to get heroin today, a lot of the supply is laced with fentanyl. That's just not true. I mean, if it was true, you would see the numbers of people dropping dead from heroin and fentanyl go through the fucking roof. That hasn't happened. My focus was making sure that he wasn't going to do the heroin that was laced, Bennett says. She never suspected the crack cocaine Chris smoked occasionally would kill him. Absolutely not. Now that's a little bit, again, people, what is there not to understand about crack cocaine? It can kill you, especially if she said he only used it occasionally. Crack cocaine's not normally something that is relegated to occasional use. But to do it occasionally seems a little bit dangerous because maybe there's variation in potency. A small amount of crack could be a large amount of cocaine for somebody that don't do cocaine. So I don't know, man. You can't sit there and act like you're never worried about someone overdosing on crack. That just sounds like ignorance. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say fentanyl, which is up to 50 times more powerful than heroin, was found in more than half of overdose death last year in 10 states, including Massachusetts. Now, there's concern as it creeps into cocaine. Again, I'm not going to keep repeating myself because they keep doing it, but they do keep doing it. They're doing this thing where they're like, okay, we have these deaths and they're overdoses, and a bunch of them, we found fentanyl in them. Okay, well, can you tell me more about these deaths? No, just that there was fentanyl in them, and that, you know, they're all over the place and it's happening. Now it's creeping into the cocaine. First of all, when you're talking about somebody that's dead, you didn't fucking test the bag of dope that they bought or whatever it was. The Xanax that you said earlier was laced with fentanyl, or the marijuana or whatever. Did you fucking test the bag that before they even did it, or even like, oh, let's see, here's the bag he was doing? No, it doesn't seem like you guys are doing that. You're not testing the actual drugs. You're looking at the fucking overdose report, the urinalysis or the blood test, and you're saying, oh, they had fentanyl in their system as well. That's all you're saying. You're not saying that the fentanyl made it into the cocaine. That's not what... Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm asking my audience. I really don't want to keep repeating this talking point, but they are basically just saying, oh, we have a death. Fentanyl was in there too, so that was definitely the bag of cocaine had fentanyl in it. They never make that fucking actual connection. You know what I want to see? I want to see the fucking lab report that shows you that you had cocaine with fentanyl and it tested in a lab. But short of that, man, this is just all hearsay. It's all bullshit. And God, man, I know people are going to be like, this guy's on the internet, on YouTube, basically encouraging people to go out and do coke, even though he, just read an article from NPR like they're supposed to be reputable or something. NPR? Are you fucking kidding me? NPR is about as believable these days as a frickin' fortune cookie. I'd have to say fortune cookies probably are even more accurate. Bennett's story echoes those heard on college campuses where students are snorting cocaine to stay awake, or during a campus party, or unknowingly overdosing on fentanyl. Really? Do you have anybody like that? Or are you just fucking pulling this shit right out of thin air? You're saying that these are stories that are heard on college campuses. And all of a sudden you're saying students are snorting cocaine to stay awake. How do you even know that? Where's this at? College campuses. During a campus party, just snorting some coke during a party and unknowingly overdosing on fentanyl. 30, 40, 50-year-olds are celebrating their big birthdays with a line of cocaine and keeling over. How do you fucking know that any of this is happening? This is just some shit that they're making up out of thin air. And regular cocaine users report feeling that expected rush, then falling asleep. Really? Who are they reporting this to? inquiring minds want to know. This is like you completely are fucking pulling this shit out of your ass. If these men and women use cocaine and did not have the opioid reversal drug naloxone handy, sometimes they don't wake up. And there you go. There's the sales pitch. Am I fucking... This is getting old, guys. I'm doing this frequently, debunking these like so-called like fear-based propaganda, like so-called news stories in this paid propaganda environment that we're in. And let's take a look again where we're at. We're at Hello Giggles, WBUR. A lot of local people pick it up. Oh, we got the Daily Caller. Like, no, they're always reliable. Just like the Daily Mail, they're always like spot on with facts, you know. No, actually, the Daily Caller and the fucking Daily Mail are never on point, and they're basically reefer madness like kingpins and veterans. They've been doing the reefer madness thing since probably the 30s. Florida Politics, a blog. WJXT News, WCAX, more Daily Caller. The Daily Caller runs this shit like every month or every 2 weeks. And it goes on, you know. Even if you had the Washington Post and CNN, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter anymore, man. All of these people are fucking paid for by Big Pharma. Big time. If you don't believe it, just turn CNN on and try fucking watching it for 20 minutes. You're going to get like 80% Big Pharma. They don't even, it's not even just the commercials, man. They work that shit into the news stories. They put it in the fucking thing on the bottom. They want you to go buy some naloxone, guys. Have you figured that out yet? Because especially you rich cokeheads, you know, don't fucking be caught, you know, overdosing on fentanyl and not having naloxone in your pocket. All the hip kids are doing it. It's not clear how many of the nearly 2,000 estimated deaths listed on as opioid overdoses last year in Massachusetts represents people who thought they were doing cocaine. I'll tell you how many. 0. Because people that died and you found the two things in their system, that doesn't mean that they fucking were doing the one that didn't kill you. The state doesn't register drug combinations found in most bodies after an overdose. But do they show it on the autopsy? Do they list different drugs that are in there? I don't understand that. The state doesn't register drug combinations? That doesn't make fucking sense. It's like, what do? They tested, oh, we found cocaine and fentanyl, but you know what? I think he was trying to do cocaine, so we'll chalk it up as a cocaine death. Throw that fentanyl out the window. Don't put it on the report. Now, what are you even saying? Connecticut does. The number of deaths involving cocaine and fentanyl together has increased 420% in the past 3 years. How convenient. It wasn't 418 or 402 or 435. It was 420, huh? Man, I'm telling you guys, they really won they were running a marathon on this article. And I mean, I could see them sitting around in the you know, break room talking about writing this article, and they're probably like, "Oh, look, fentanyl and cocaine, that shit rose like 418%. Let's make it 420 just to fuck with people." I mean, this is what I'm thinking, man. These are the stupidest people in the world writing this shit. Because they're not questioning any of it. They're just running it, and then they're just laughing at you. It doesn't even matter to them, man. The headline's all they're trying to get out there. Fentanyl laced cocaine. Go and don't forget the sales pitch. Get some naloxone. Heroin laced with fentanyl claimed even more lives in Connecticut during that same period. How do you know that? They didn't actually give you a hard number. They just said a percent increase, which is misleading, because if you had one person die 1 year and 4 people die the next year, there's a 400% increase. What good is that? That's only fucking 4 people still. Meanwhile, you're scaring people with this big 420 number. In Massachusetts, an increasing amount of cocaine laced with fentanyl is changing hands on the streets. All right, here we go. Maybe they're going to tell us that they found it. State police recorded 199 such samples last year, a nearly threefold increase from 2016, but still a small percentage of total cocaine seizures. So I wish you would tell us the percentage there, but you didn't want to, like, you had your scary number, 199 samples. That's scary enough. Don't say anything else that might delineate that. Thank you very much. But meanwhile, they didn't really say anything again. They're saying this is cocaine laced with fentanyl. But that's not what... No. That's not what they're saying. The police records doesn't actually show you this. The Drug Enforcement Administration says 7% of cocaine seized in New England in 2017 included fentanyl. All right, included fentanyl in the seizure. When they seized the cocaine, the people already or also had fentanyl on hand, or was it actually in the cocaine? And that was up from 4% in 2016. A similar comparison for the U.S. as a whole is not readily available. Sounds to me like there would be way more people dropping dead if any of those numbers were real. The DEA's latest national drug threat assessment says adding fentanyl to cocaine is typically for the purpose of speedballing. And, so that's a good point there. Do you go to your dealer and say, hey, man, I want to buy a speedball, and they give you a packet with fentanyl and cocaine in it? Is that how it works? No. The way a speedball works is that somebody that wants to do the drugs goes and buys the fucking upper, which would be the cocaine, and then go buy the downer, which would be the fentanyl, and then they would do the drugs together. That's how you do it. That's what speedballing is. Not you go to the drug dealer and be like, hey, I want a speedball with meth and heroin in it. That's not how it works, man. For the most part, people that sell contraband like to just sell the shit that as it is and try to be as real as possible with it. Because those are the people that succeed. Everybody else gets in trouble doing it because nobody likes to buy something that isn't what it's supposed to be, especially if it can kill you. And drug dealers are already in a dangerous enough game. They don't need to fucking sell deadly drugs to somebody that was just trying to do some cocaine and face the repercussions of what that might look like when the customer comes back to try to kill you for selling them fentanyl. So a speedball combines the rush of a stimulant, often cocaine, and a drug that depresses the nervous system, such as heroin. It's a dangerous combination in any form, more so with fentanyl. But there's a speculation that something else is happening in the current surge of cocaine, fentanyl overdoses, and deaths. A dozen EMTs, police officers, physicians, and outreach workers contacted for this story describe men and women who were revived for an opioid overdose who claim they had only used cocaine. See, that's what I'm saying. The stigma needs to go away. So when was this fentanyl added and why? And there are a few theories. Some researchers say fentanyl showing up in cocaine looks to be accidental, a product of messy packaging rather than malicious intent. Boston Medical Center epidemiologist Tracy Green says the rise in cocaine fentanyl deaths she's tracking out of Rhode Island is commensurate with the increase in fentanyl deaths overall. As in, well, sometimes you'll find people with cocaine in their system too. It's just how, some people like their cocaine, especially if they're going to be doing something that knocks you the fuck out like fentanyl. And is it really like the combination that killed people? Or was it that they took too much fentanyl? I'm thinking it was the one where they took too much fentanyl. It's more of a contamination model rather than one that is malicious or purposeful, says Green, who is also an associate professor of emergency medicine and epidemiology at Brown University School of Medicine. But in a growing number of law enforcement agents, doctors, recovery providers, and drug users argue for malicious intent. That's a list of people that I do not fucking trust right there. Who are you going to trust? You're going to trust this epidemiologist who is a professor of emergency medicine, who studies this shit big time, and has been tracking fentanyl and cocaine deaths in Rhode Island. You going to trust her? Or are you going to trust someone from law enforcement, doctors, recovery providers, and drug users? I don't trust any of those people, man. Not a single fucking one of them. They all, I mean, the first three have a vested interest in making sure this propaganda is out there. You know, they all stand to gain from it. And then the drug user, who the fucking, well, we'll hear from the drug user. They speculate that the cartel leaders are using cocaine to expand the market of people addicted to opioids. They don't need that. They got them addicted to cocaine. The profit margins on cocaine are fucking just dandy. They don't need to worry about making less money with a more dangerous substance, which is fentanyl. And no drug dealer in their right fucking mind is going to try to addict somebody on opioids through cocaine. Like, it's such a hit and miss situation. And the miss is that the fucking customer dies or they come back to kill you. When they overdose and they wait, what the fuck? I was trying to do some coke. They know where you live. They bought the shit off you in the first place, man. You don't think they're going to be able to find you to come and fucking blow your head off? Nobody's doing this, dude. Quote, people who were just using cocaine occasionally, now they're using cocaine every day, says Raphael. That's... You know, some people have addictive personalities and probably shouldn't be fucking around with highly addictive substances in the first place. All right? There's your first one. It's got nothing. No one's going to fucking put fentanyl in coke, and then the person doing the occasional line of coke once in a while is all of a sudden be like, "Damn, man, I need some more of that fentanyl." That doesn't make any sense, dude. So Raphael, who buys cocaine and other illegal drugs, often several times a day on the streets of Boston. We've agreed to just use his first name. Raphael says dealers high up are intentionally adding fentanyl to cocaine because fentanyl is a more addictive drug. All right, now, how much more addictive? All right, what is the addictive properties that make it more addictive? You know, and what it is what it comes down to is between fentanyl and cocaine, the withdrawal and the mental addiction part, the I need more thing, is probably way more intense with the fentanyl than the cocaine. But all the other things, like the hey, I need more because that shit was just wonderful, you know, and it wears off fast, so you want to do it more times than the other one, which would be fentanyl, which lasts probably a long time. You probably don't just feel like doing another hit of fentanyl right after you do it. I don't know. I don't have any experience with fentanyl, but I'm guessing, you know, you do it once and then sometime later on that day you might come down off it. Like, that shit is pretty powerful. Whereas cocaine, you could be like ready to do another one in 10 minutes. It's all about making them, the drug users, need the product, Raphael says. This guy, how can you sit here and believe somebody that buys cocaine and crack all day? All right? I'm not trying to like stigmatize and over stigmatize, which has already been done, the drug addict. But honestly, you're going to ask this guy to explain why we're finding cocaine laced with fucking fentanyl, which you still haven't proven that you even found any of that. There's at least one flaw in the market expansion theory, says Albie Park, who co-founded a drug use harm reduction program out of Northampton, Massachusetts called HRH 413. If you're opioid naive with no tolerance for opioids and you take fentanyl, there's a chance that you may die, she says. So adding fentanyl to cocaine may just scare people away. I didn't even think of that. Okay, so it might scare them away, might kill them, might make them fucking overdose and go to the hospital, and then when they come back, they want to kill you for selling it to them. Them are all valid reasons not to lace fucking cocaine with fentanyl if you're a cartel boss trying to get more people hooked on your drugs. It's the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard of. Leave it up to a druggie to fucking say the dumbest thing. It's unfortunate because I'm not trying to like defend anything here. I'm just trying to like get to the bottom of this and get some truth. I'm sick of the fucking lies in this drug war. All right? And that's why you guys, the government and the prohibitionists and the rehab people and the cops and all this shit, that's why nobody fucking believes you. Because you keep lying over and over about shit that's just clearly obvious as fuck that is not happening. There's one more angle to this shit that they want to fucking beat home. And here it is. Wait, let me just kind of look through this. I'm sick of reading this shit. A call for warning. So, across Massachusetts, there's been scattered alerts about overdoses that appear to be caused by fentanyl in the cocaine. No. Please just differentiate, though, that you found somebody that overdosed that had both in their system. Might not even have done it the same day. Law enforcement tells us that there's the next wave of this is the next wave of the addiction crisis. Fentanyl-laced cocaine. You know how I know this ain't true? Because you would already have thousands of people that just died since this article came out, what, yesterday? Like I said, they've been running this story for over a month now. And various outlets and different forums. And, you know, like you see this one where they're talking about it in Boston. They're talking about it in Florida and the other one. Well, they're also talking about it in Ohio. I mean, it's all over the place. They're all, it's like everybody got a memo. Oh, hey, okay, start talking about the cocaine-laced fentanyl. And then they all start putting the stories out. Law enforcement tells us that this is the next wave of the addiction crisis. Oh, really? That's funny. It sounds more like fucking NPR's the ones trying to tell us that. And WCAX and the Daily Caller and fucking Florida Police blog or Politics blog. And don't forget Hello Giggles. Doing the hard reporting. There's been a few public warnings in Rhode Island, New York City, and Tennessee. Quote, here's why we're so concerned, said the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Assistant Director T.J. Jordan during a news conference last October. To be blunt, what you might buy and use thinking it's a good time could cost you your life. See, now they come with the like things that are supposed to look like facts and to scare you with statistics and, you know, numbers and shit like I've been showing you. And then they do this. They give you this guy that's like, I'm with the Bureau of Investigative Assistant Director, blah, 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 you know, some fancy title. And they're like, look, guys, you think you're out there having a good time and then the party's over and you're on a fucking stretcher, dead. And then right after that, buy some naloxone. And here it is. Some in the overdose prevention community say it's time to raise broader alarms. Jess Tilley, who also co-founded HRH 413, offers naloxone and other harm reduction training to agencies that serve drug users and sex workers in Western Massachusetts. We don't want to cause widespread panic, but with how deadly fentanyl is, we really need to get the word out that there could potentially be in every batch of cocaine, just like we tell everyone to approach heroin like it could potentially have fentanyl, Tilly says. That's not the one I was talking about when I said they got one more point to beat home, but this is what I was talking about earlier. They want you to think that if you can afford it, you might as well have a fucking naloxone handy, right? This means teaching cocaine users to test drugs before they use it, and then start with a small dose to use in pairs and carry naloxone, things that are becoming more common for heroin users. The tools that are going to be most effective are the ones that we already have, says Green in the Boston Medical Center. There's hope. We have quite a lot of that. We can work with it. I really hope they just end the drug war and fucking treat this like a public health crisis and stop fucking trying to scare people into submission. Green is concerned if growing number of regular and recreational cocaine users will be ingesting fentanyl, there will be a lot of questions researchers need to ask and answer first on how cocaine and fentanyl interact in the body, whether this shift will lead to more intravenous drug use, and which fentanyl analogs are in the cocaine mixtures? Yeah, those are all good questions because none of them can be answered with just this fucking empty rhetoric and no actual tests. You're looking at a dead body and you're like, oh man, that must have been a bag of cocaine that had fentanyl in it. At the drug trafficking level, there's shifting happening in the markets. We want to think the whole market transitioning in front of our very eyes. How about if you look at it like that, it's because the manufacturers who make fentanyl, the American manufacturers, not China, not Mexico, because the drug cartels don't make fucking fentanyl. They're not sitting there like... There's not this thing like you're saying, like the whole market's transitioning because those guys are putting fentanyl and everything. The fucking drug problem in America has been transformed because of fentanyl being out there. People that do drugs that normally don't kill you are getting killed because they take too much fentanyl with it. And it's not because people are lacing those drugs with fentanyl and then selling them to people. It's because people are just doing fentanyl. It's whatever. Okay, now here's the final thing. And this is the piece that pisses me off the most. If fentanyl becomes more prevalent in cocaine, it's not. All right? Nobody's doing what you're talking about. But since you think they are, there are signs that African Americans will be hit harder than other groups. Not true. All right, now, even if every African American in the country did cocaine, there's still probably more white people that do cocaine. All right? So what in the actual fuck are you talking about? All this shit they talk about, they're making it sound like the only people that do coke in America are black people. Are you fucking kidding? Have you been to Wall Street? Have you been to Hollywood? Have you been to anywhere? This is the most ridiculous, short-sighted, unfucking believably ignorant thing I've heard in a long time. A recent study found about the same rate of cocaine-related overdose deaths among blacks between 2012 and 2015 as opioid overdose deaths among whites. Bullshit. That is such bullshit. It's not even a 5-digit number. And you're telling me that... Are you talking about per capita or per 1,000 people? What are you talking about? There's no way that you can side by side those two numbers, man. They're nowhere near each other. That really reinforces the fact that we have to worry about cocaine use among African Americans. As if so you weren't worried about that before? Yeah, right. Come on, man. Go downtown, go to the courthouse, look at the fucking dockets, watch the people walk into court that are getting arrested for cocaine. Tell me what they look like. You're not worried about them doing coke before, then why is there such a fucking major operation of this thing that we call the drug war? But this is David Thomas, a program officer at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. He ought to know. Thomas and his colleagues cannot tell whether fentanyl played a role in the rise of these cocaine overdoses, but Tom Gilson says he can. Gilson is a medical examiner in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, which includes Cleveland. Over the space of 3 years, we have almost 14-fold increase in fentanyl deaths among African Americans, says Gibson, most of which says were mixtures of fentanyl with cocaine. And again, you're not talking about the bag of drugs that these people did for the 5,000th time. You're talking about somebody that came in with an overdose, was dead, and then they looked in there and they found that they had cocaine and fentanyl in their system. Quit trying to scare people with fucking fake bullshit. There was not a mixture that had cocaine and fentanyl in it. I'm not gonna change my mind on this until I see some lab test results. Some real, like, okay, we did find the cocaine. Here's the cocaine. We found it on this block right here, over here in this city, in this state. And we tested it at this lab, and it had this. These are what it had in it. We're not going to see any of that because this is what they do. They use correlation equals causation. They use like observable data as makes any conclusion you want, and it's okay. That's what they can do on their side. The growing presence of fentanyl and cocaine may be merging into drug communities and decades of tragedy. Dude, are you fucking kidding? You're acting like so you're talking about the drug communities of the crack? Because black people, I mean, stereotypically, they're not known to be big on like just powdered cocaine or whatever. That seems to be more of a white people thing. And then crack maybe in their community. I don't get this. As far as like the tragedy, decades of tragedy. All right, guys, we have a drug problem in this country, and there's no fucking way it's going to get solved with this kind of bullshit and rhetoric. But what this does do is it makes a great case for legalizing fucking all drugs and regulating them. So you know what you're getting. You know, when you go get that cocaine, you know that it's been tested because it'll have a fucking lab report test or a batch number where the batch got tested and they didn't find any fentanyl in it. But meanwhile, if you go out on the street and you buy cocaine or crack or whatever, is there a chance that there might be fentanyl in it? I'm not saying that there's a 0% chance, all right? Because there are some sick fucks out there that would probably just throw some fentanyl in your Coke just to kill you and have a fucking laugh about it when they read about it in the paper. But outside of that, man, this shit doesn't make a bit of sense to me. And it sounds like an over-the-top scare tactic, just like the one where they talked about weed-laced fentanyl. And if you didn't see that video that I made about that, I'll try to link it in the description. It was a few months ago that I did the video. Like last October, I think, is when they said the last report came out. But anyway, that's all I got on this. And holy shit. Just like when you're talking about the K2, you know, the spice or the bath salts. We need to legalize and regulate drugs. Obviously, that's what else are you trying to say? What's your solution then there, buddy? Say like there is a big situation where cocaine, you just can't trust it anymore. It's just might have fentanyl in it. Well, what's your fucking proposed solution to that? We have millions of people that use cocaine every fucking day. What are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them, oh, it's a chance you take, buddy. You're going to turn it into a public health crisis where people are literally dropping like flies because of fucking every time they do a bump of cocaine, there's a chance they might kill themselves with a fentanyl bump. Give me a break. I don't know. Tell me what you think down below. I need some input on this. What the fuck is going on? I don't even know. All right.